But now to an intriguing update on League Initiative, the website that was stealing stories from Australian mastheads, including the Townsville Bulletin, and rewriting them badly with AI, even mangling genuine quotes in the process, like this comment about Helam Lukey from Cowboys manager Michael Luck.
We believe he's only just scratched the surface of his potential.
Which was turned into this hilarious rendering.
He's nudged the iceberg, but there's so much more to come.
They're doing this in an obvious attempt to avoid charges of plagiarism. And if you doubt that motive, take a look at this article in League Initiative, where the prompt to AI was accidentally left in.
You are an experienced sports journalist. You are required to rewrite the following article. You must ensure the article you generate is different from the original article to avoid plagiarism detection.
But we now know that League Initiative is not alone. Whoever is behind it, and they've tried hard to stay hidden, has at least 3 copycat sites, which also rip off and rewrite other people's stories without crediting the journalist or paying for their work, and which also use AI. This story, for example, on Formula One Initiative last week, is a rip-off of this one in motorsport. And this story on the same site next day is ripped off from this motorsport story about the FIA. Only the F1 version has failed to give Natalie Robin a first name because that info was only in the subheading and not in the text. And AI has changed her quote from this:
"Now is the time to step away in the knowledge that the organisation is better placed for the challenges which lie ahead,"
to this:
"The time to step back has come, knowing the body is well equipped for future challenges."
While this thank you from Robin is also rewritten, turning an enormous privilege into an immense honour, performing into serving, grateful into appreciative, and directed into spearheaded. None of these recent stories has a byline, but several stories from F1 Initiative back in 2023, like these two, which were stolen lock, stock and barrel from ESPN and Motorsport, certainly do name the writer, and he's called James Raptis. So, who is he? And is he behind these sites? To cut to the chase, we found a James Raptis on X, who both follows League Initiative and is followed by them. The same Mr. Raptis is also a director of a company called Fly Learner, which shares an office address with another Initiative Media website called Aliavera, that rips off Russian and Chinese news and translates it into English. And the same Mr. Raptis, wait for it, is also the senior legal counsel at Australian Community Media, which publishes a large number of regional newspapers and websites. Now, surely, a lawyer who works for a big media company couldn't possibly be involved in stealing copy from other media groups, could he? So we tried several times to call him. We also told him on X we were trying to get in touch, and we then emailed him a list of questions to ask if he was behind these rip-off websites. What then happened was that the websites League Initiative, F1 Initiative, Surf Initiative and Aliavera were all suddenly taken down or began denying access. And James Raptis, F1 Initiative and League Initiative also decided to protect their tweets on X from prying eyes. Strange, eh? But Raptis did then call us for an off-the-record conversation and promised a statement which you can read on our website. In this, he admits to helping set up the websites and hosting them on a web server that he owns. But, he says, he does not operate them, and it would be misleading and wrong for us to suggest that. And he claims,
"I have never written any content for them. Any content carrying my byline has not been produced by me."
And he adds that when he became aware the sites were stealing content, he
advised the operator that the server would no longer host the sites, and they were taken down.
Oh, really? If James Raptis only discovered that last Friday, he must have missed Media Watch 2 weeks ago, when we exposed what League Initiative was doing, even though he follows us on X. And clearly he wasn't watching in the last 2 years, when his byline appeared several times on F1 Initiative, as these rip-off sites plundered other people's work. But at least our expose and questions to Raptis have seen these 4 rip-off news sites eradicated for now, and that is a good thing.
Now let's go to this story. I can't wait to hear your take on this. A report from the Adelaide Advertiser about a South Australian police officer who identifies as a cat.
What I'm concerned about is what is he going to do when he confronts a cat burglar?
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And there's not much that Rita Panahi and Prue McSween like more than a crazy story about furries, or people who identify as animals, because it just shows that identity politics has made the world go mad. But this time, they didn't have to look far to find the latest can you believe it scandal. Because in South Australia, it was there for all to see on the front of the Advertiser.
Puss in police boots.
Exclusive.
A junior police officer has caused a stir after they told colleagues they identify as a cat when off duty.
Yes, what a story. And all backed up by, not a single named source. The paper also omitted to identify the police officer or reveal their rank and location. So naturally, they couldn't get a comment or ask if it was true. But that didn't stop the Advertiser publishing the story and the clickbait factories here and in the UK joining in.
Furry police officer caught dressing up as a cat in spare time as it's their persona.
Nor did it stop Rita Panahi and Prue McSween having a rant about it on Sky News, mistakenly referring to the female officer as a man.
He's part of the furry subculture.
We are going mad in this country and, wow, do you have faith in calling the cops anymore?
But sadly, it's not even a first in the mainstream papers. This is a popular story on the right, and especially in News Corp tabloids, which have run at least 3 stories in the last 2 years, stoking the anti-woke myth. And it's one of Rita's favourite topics.
These school children from a middle school in Utah staged a protest because they say the principal isn't doing enough to protect them from furries. These are the kids who identify as cats and dogs and other animals, and apparently they're in the habit of biting and scratching.
Needless to say, all of those stories have been debunked, dismissed or just written off as standard schoolyard antics. But for this nonsense to end up on the front page of South Australia's main newspaper is a sad new milestone. We asked the Advertiser about the flimsy evidence for their furries cop story and why they believe it deserved the front page that day. The paper did not respond. But now, to WA and a big blue with a billionaire over the price of ink.
AFR to stop printing in WA after Seven's abuse of power.
That power comes from Kerry Stokes' Seven, owning the only printing press in WA, which is a handy monopoly when you also own most of the papers as well. And the alleged abuse? Seven wants to jack up the cost of printing its rival newspaper, the AFR, by 100%. And according to the AFR's editor-in-chief, this is
a anti-competitive abuse of market power.
Telling 9 6PR in Perth.
This will increase, if you like, the power of Seven West Media and the billionaire Kerry Stokes in Perth, and there's been a bit of alarm about that.
And he also appeared on 9 News in Perth to say, for the AFR to give in to Kerry Stokes' demands would be
uneconomic. We would be running at a loss, and in these days you can't really run businesses at a loss.
Meanwhile, on X, the AFR's Mark DiStefano was crying foul and suggesting a sinister motive.
This is unbelievable. After our critical coverage of Kerry Stokes, his Seven West Media has seemingly retaliated.
While the paper was calling Seven's move a targeted attack and suggesting it was retribution for months of fearless reporting on Stokes' power, influence and judgment. A claim of hubris, perhaps, and one rubbished by Seven.
It is a commercial decision. To suggest anything else would be inaccurate and disingenuous.
But that didn't stop the AFR continuing its attack on Seven, taking a swipe at Kerry and digging up support from former ACCC boss Graham Samuel, along with several Teal independents, including former journalist Zoe Daniel, who told the paper,
This is an extraordinary abuse of market power in what is already the most concentrated media market in the country.
And it seems Seven's print monopoly is causing problems for other players as well, with Mark Schneider recounting to the ABC how he approached Seven West last year to print his small-town paper.
I had 5 times the circulation of their Bridgetown paper, and I asked for a quote for the West Australian to print it, and they never got back to me.
So, what did he do instead?
I tried running it online behind a paywall, and it failed spectacularly.
And he concludes,
there was no way that independent papers competing with one of the West Australians' rural papers could compete. They just wouldn't print them.
We put that claim to Seven and asked if it prints any titles that compete with its own regional papers in the same market. But it ducked the question, which suggests Mark Schneider's criticism is on the money. As for the AFR, you have to wonder what the margins are for its $5 paper, with the Australian reporting the doubling in print costs would add a paltry $3,000 a day to its printing bill and suggesting
But this being the media industry, other factors aside from money are at play, namely pride, ego, self-interest and payback.
Pride, ego, payback in the media? Surely not. And staying with 7, let's cross to some vaccine alarmism on Sunrise with this question from host Matt Shervington.
It's the side effect that's seen AstraZeneca withdrawn from sale around the world, so was it ever safe?
AstraZeneca withdrew its COVID-19 vaccine from sale last week, citing a decline in demand, which is partly because it has been linked to a rare but serious side effect causing blood clotting. Now, before we go further, you need to know that the risks are extremely low, especially in Australia, where the vaccine has not been available since March last year. But that did not stop Sunrise from teasing the story all morning.
What you need to know if you took the vaccine.
AstraZeneca withdrawn as a global vaccine with a serious new side effect exposed this morning. What you need to know if you took it during the pandemic.
And since millions of Australians were vaccinated with AstraZeneca, that's a sure way to keep eyeballs on screens, which Sunrise did by teasing the story again and again until 9 a.m, when Nat and Shervo finally got round to asking the president of the Australian College of GPs,
is there any cause for concern that this vaccine has been withdrawn now?
Short answer being no, because if you were going to get sick from the jab, it would have happened months ago. And this new side effect is the one we've known about all along.
So with the blood clot issue that we're reporting on today, this is not new, you're saying? These are the same figures that we were reporting on even when it was being handed out in Australia, is that right?
Yeah, it's not new.
Which makes this tease
a serious new side effect exposed this morning.
Flat out wrong. And also alarmist, because, as Dr Higgins reminded Natalie Barr,
look, I appreciate the cause for concern, but we need to remember that the risk they're talking about, which is the clot, it's about 1 in 50,000 for our population, compared to, say, having a baby, which is 1 in 12,000.
Or taking the contraception pill, which has blood clot-related risks as low as 1 in 1,000. And let's not forget, as Health Minister Mark Butler said on 9,
it protected hundreds of millions of people across the world and saved millions of lives, and I thank AstraZeneca for that.
Sunrise didn't have time to mention that, and nor did the folks at Sky After Dark, where the usual suspects were donning the gloves for a fresh round of vaccine bashing.
Now let's take a minute to remember how our experts foisted this on people, encouraged them to get it, promised it was safe.
So they've removed their, what do they call it, marketing authorisation in Europe, right? And they've said it's a commercial decision.
With Liz Storer asking,
how long is it going to take before Pfizer and others make the same admission?
But at the end, the late debate panel reluctantly told their viewers,
the government advice in Australia continues to be that people's best protection against COVID is to take the vaccine. So there we go.
I think the lawyers also want us to tell you that the blood clots are rare. Thank you, lawyers, for giving us that advice.
Well, at least someone at Sky News is there to remind us of the facts. That's all from us for tonight. You can read statements from 7 and James Raptis on our website. Don't forget, Media Bites on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. But for now, until next week, goodbye.